Hey there, welcome to Business Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Neal DiPentino. So happy you could be with us today. Have a wonderful guest with us today. He is the VP of Sales for Purpose Growth from Batavia, Illinois. Please welcome to the show, Bryan
Thank you, Neal.
McDonald. Bryan,
excited to be
welcome,
here,
buddy.
man. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. We've been kind of having a little sidebar conversation before we got started. We have a lot of things in common. Batavia,
Yep.
Illinois, been there on several occasions. You guys have snow up there right
now? It just evaporated. We did like 2 days ago.
I see. The last time I was there, I think I was telling you, I was like, man, we were buried with snow. And, I live in Tennessee now. I'm originally from Chicago, grew up in Denver, but I haven't driven in the snow for like 100 years. So it was a little bit freaky for me. I was a little nervous about the drive, but man, it was so beautiful. You live in a wonderful part of the country.
I've lived in the Northeast or the Midwest my whole life. So snow is just par for the course. Totally.
It's just part of it. I love it. So, Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself. We want to get to know who Bryan is.
So
and what you're all
I've been
about.
in sales my whole 23 plus year career. And we were talking about this. I'm just a people person, right? I love interacting and learning about people. And I've just leveraged that love and ability to sell. And, I had a corporate job, all the way up until about 2015. Well, I worked as a salesperson, let's say. I had one corporate job out of college. After a year, they gave me a raise on Monday and I quit on Friday because I was like, I can't do this. And then after that, what happened was I was always recruited into businesses where it was full commission. And it was basically like, hey, Bryan, here's a desk, a phone, here's what we do, a pat on the back, and let me know when you need help. So I had to constantly, good luck. Right?
Good luck.
So I had to constantly figure out, like, how do I differentiate? How do I build a network? How do I get referrals? How do I just make sales happen? I had to figure out on my own. So, eventually, my business partner approached me and said, hey, I love the way that you do things. I want to teach businesses how to do this. And I think you're a great coach, because we used to sit in a room together with, I used to do a half-day networking group with peers in the B2B space. And we would talk about referrals. We would talk about business. We would talk about philosophies. And he's like, hey, I just noticed you just naturally coaching people in the room. So in, around the 2014 time, we started onPurpose Growth, and it's been great since then.
That's fantastic. It's amazing. Sometimes the most unlikely people become the best coaches. You don't even know you're a coach, but you really are. You mentor people, you help people along, and I think there's a lot of, pleasure that could be found in helping people that way.
When clients win, I had a client text me last night saying, hey, I just sold something out of the blue. It wasn't expected. It showed up in his sales process pretty quick, and it was just a virtual high five. And he's like, "Hey, I'm glad you were brought into my life." And it's just it's as equal to or greater than the money earned, right? Helping somebody achieve their ambitions and their goals is just fulfilling to me, right? I love helping other people win.
Absolutely. I was just listening to a book, actually, kind of a book on tape. I haven't really listened to anything like that, but one of the guys that we interviewed here recently wrote a book. He sent me the audio version of it. And one of the things they were talking about was the seasons in life being like, kind of relating it to football, how you start in, a 20-year journey, like as a peewee guy into college, into, the pros. And then the pros, a lot of them end up being coaches. And in each stage of of your life in that arena, you find satisfaction. And some of the most satisfaction a lot of people find is in the coaching arena, just for that reason, exactly what you just said. So that's really cool. I have to ask you a question. So I was
Yeah.
looking at your LinkedIn profile, and something on your LinkedIn profile kind of caught my eye, and I was hoping you might be able to explain this a little bit. But you were talking about how you teach and what they learn, and you said something about uncommon knowledge in a common sense world. Can you maybe clarify that? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, great question. So what I've learned to be true is that a lot of the common sense things that maybe the average people do aren't really as effective as they are presented. Uh, and when you do necessarily the opposite, that's the thing that's um, most effective. And in sales, I had a mentor, Brian Marshall. He's still in my life. Showed up 20 years ago. He instilled in me the belief and principle that the best way to sell other people is to not sell them, because they expect you to come at them, to chase them. And when I started taking that general approach, uh, things started really picking up speed for me, right? And when we could talk about some of those principles, but also some uncommon knowledge is, the mind wants to go far and wide. Like when you think about sales strategy, when you think about ideal clients, it's being general. And being general actually is the slowest process for somebody to get to where they want to go. And the motto I use is go narrow to go wide, meaning when you focus on a very specific ideal client and you master and you get a lot of traction in that space, what happens is people outside that space automatically think that you're good at what you do in their space. It just inevitably happens, right? So it's some of these things that another principle is that one of the greatest sales tactics, or two layered on top of each other, are listening and curiosity. Or people are like, well, when do I present and pitch? And I'm like, you don't, right? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, you can sell a lot through listening and asking questions, because
Yeah,
I have a
absolutely.
belief that prospects will tell you exactly what to offer them and how to offer to them if you're using those two things. So it's things like this is like the need to talk is the worst thing to do in sales. But in the common world, it's everybody practice your pitch, practice your elevator speech, practice this. It's all talking and about you, and prospects don't care. All they care about is.
That's right. That's right. I always thought it was. I always thought found it kind of funny is that a salesperson would come to me and tell me what I needed. Okay, before they ever asked me what I wanted, and I'm like, okay, what a great philosophy that is. And I mean, it should be as plain as the nose on your face. But a lot
Yeah,
of people just
my
don't get
partner
that.
Jeff and I were sitting with the president of a pretty large insurance and financial services business here in Chicago. This has got to be going on 6 or 7 years ago. And he had us come up because he's like, hey, I'm always open to listening, like your guys' philosophy on sales. I always want my people to learn something new. And we were just talking about sales. And he said, he told us a story that was like fascinating. He goes, as much as I'm the sales driver and I'm running a sales organization, I hate salespeople. And he goes, here's the reason why. He said, we were, they managed 401ks and they were changing their technology platform internally to manage that. And they had some service providers come in. He said, a girl and her boss came in, and he said, when we sat down, I said, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this, this, and this. And he's like, I telegraphed what I wanted to talk about. He said, she goes, okay, perfect. Let me tell you a couple things. And she took her computer, turned around towards him, and went on and put on a 45-minute PowerPoint slideshow about how awesome this company was, why they needed them. And he told me that he stopped listening after 3 minutes. And,
I was
and he
thinking
said
maybe
at the
one.
end, he's like, oh, thanks. Appreciate you guys coming in. And he said, I bet you any money they thought that was a great meeting. Right. So
Yeah,
it's things like
yeah.
that. It's like, prospects never buy the thing that you sell. they always buy the help that they need. They are two different.
Right. Right. But it's amazing to me that I've been in sales and marketing now for 4 decades. So a little bit of experience. And look, I've made some of the same mistakes as that
We all,
woman did, that person did. I think we all have. I mean, that's how we kind of learn, what's right, what's wrong, to some extent, unless we have a coach like you, Bryan. But, why is it, do you think that people, I mean, is it just human nature that we just have to talk and not
yeah,
listen?
here's
what
the
causes
principle,
that?
right? And I'm going to ask this in questions. What's the number one thing you think people like to talk about? Correct.
There's
What's the number one thing people like
Mhm.
to think about when they're not talking about themselves? Not a trick question.
Oh man, now you threw me. I guess
Not a trick
I'm
question.
sorry. Say it again.
Correct.
Probably the same thing.
Correct.
Ourselves, I
100%.
guess.
We're wired that way. We
Yeah.
are wired that way as humans. So if I understand that principle, why would I want to sit down in front of a prospect and start talking about how awesome I am in my business? They're not going to listen. They're wired to not listen.
No.
But if I get them talking, now they're engaged. And if they tell me a bunch of information and I say, hey, based on this and this that you said, can I talk to you about how I can help? It creates relevance for them and they will listen.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, you're absolutely right. I have been in those positions too. I can remember one specific example. This was many, many years ago, where we had actually were meeting with Albertsons in Salt Lake City. Their offices were there then, and I had a sales rep that, first of all, he made a lot of mistakes. He was a great guy, but he was kind of green. And the first mistake he made was not confirming the meeting. So we had flown in from Denver to Salt Lake City, and found out when we got there we didn't have a meeting. So finally, we were able to convince the guy's assistant to just give us, 5-10 minutes, because we've flown all that way and everything. And he was courteous enough to be able to do that. I mean, I thought it was great. So we went into the lunchroom and and we started having a conversation. And my rep opened up his computer, and he had worked like hours on this really big, beautiful PowerPoint thing with all the transitions and all that kind of stuff, and I could see the buyer's face just went blank as soon as he opened the computer. So I shut the computer down, which I think the rep was a little bit upset with, but we actually just had that conversation. It's like you said, what is it that you need? What can we do for you? And when he told us, we were able to give him what he wanted. Yep. We actually closed the sale. But it was like, it took us 10 minutes to close the sale because we asked the right questions. So I agree with 100%.
And I call that co-design. When you co-design with prospects and clients, more things happen in regards to sales and progress, right? Because they want to be part of the process of getting what they want. Kind of like what you said. They don't want, you said, I hate when salespeople tell me what I want or why I need this. Like, that's the last thing to do, right? They want to be involved in creating that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it is a collaboration. You're absolutely right. And I mean, it comes down to, there is no cookie cutter way thing for really anybody. And maybe it is. Maybe it's the same widget that you're selling, the first person to the second person, third person, but they want to receive it in a different way.
You hit the nail on the head. You have a template offer, if you will, but how you present that is the customization, to them, right? Because they're 80% is the same. It's the 20% that's different for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bryan, tell me a little bit about who is your client? What kind of clients do you work with?
Thank you. So, I serve people who develop some skill, love, or expertise of something in corporate America, and now they're utilizing that skill to serve small and medium-sized business owners. Sales is not their natural suit, right? They're a CFO, they're an HR person, they're a Lean Six Sigma consultant, they're some type of consultant where they love serving clients, but they loathe sales. And sales is the lifeblood of their business, right? So they just don't want to be they don't want to show up as a salesperson, or I should say, assessed as a salesperson. They don't want to be pushy. They don't want to make irrelevant offers. They're just not sure how to do it. And I help them feel more authentic, and a lot of times taking skills that they have in their business and bringing them into the sales process, because that's, more of who they are. And a lot of times, and I'll credit this. Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called Getting Naked. And Getting Naked, if you've ever read it, is about a business fable about sales, about a consulting company. And in that book, when I read it, I applied this right away. He said, what you do is you start consulting or working right away in the sales process, because what happens is the people that are very serious and want your help just naturally move on and become clients. The other people that were going to take the information that you're providing and run with it always were. So when people take the skills that they have in their expertise and bring them to the sales process, one, they can be who they are. And two, they start working and people start understanding their expertise. And it's ultimately the opposite of selling, right? I like to say it's serving versus selling. And that's a great way to enroll.
I love that. I mean, I used to think back and early on when I first got into sales, and my journey was kind of accidental. I wasn't planning on being a salesperson. I just kind of ended up that way. But when I was working for larger companies and we'd all get together, the people who were always winning the awards were the most unlikely people. You would look at them like you think, okay, well, be a salesperson, you have to have the gift of gab. I've always heard that. You have to be able to sell ice to an Eskimo. I don't know if that's even PC anymore, if you could say that. But those were things that you heard. But really, the guys, the people, the men and women who were winning those awards were people who were didn't have all those skills. Their skills were really listening, understanding the needs of the customer, like you said, collaborating with that customer, building that relationship, and it all resulted in great
tell
results.
People, the fact that you're not a salesperson is actually your biggest advantage, right? That's your biggest advantage, because when we're consulting and we're working with established businesses, we're typically going in and working on sales process, sales strategy, and things like that, and implementing things with the sales team last. And, my role in the business is to once we implement that, I'm the one that works with the salespeople, and I always have to unwind bad behaviors, which is challenging. Where somebody who's not a salesperson naturally, they were, an executive somewhere, they don't have those natural tendencies. So they actually have an advantage, because all they'd have to do is learn what to do. They don't have to unlearn something and then learn something, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in your business, then, are you working with people on an individual basis, groups, working with companies and their teams?
On the coaching side,
how does that
all work? Individually, or I have some group coaching programs. On the consulting side, it's all groups. We're taking, like I said, some strategy or process and helping implement the team. So we're pretty much doing that in a group. Sometimes we may do one-to-one stuff past that group implementation or group training to make the implementation stick. But really, what we believe when it comes to coaching or consulting, when you build a better system and process, it will be easier for you to actually execute on that. One might suggest that the system and process is more important than the skills.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That's wonderful. Hey, can you, so obviously you've had some success. We wouldn't be talking if you hadn't, right? So can you maybe share some success stories that you've had in working with people and how you've taken them from, just using examples you just gave, how did that work out for some
super recent one is a client who, she has multiple businesses, and she wanted to start a leadership consulting business. And, she was just hesitant. She had a lot of head trash around, reaching out to people in her network, about feeling unnatural about it. And within the first 3 weeks of us working together, she signed $100,000 contract because she got out of her own way.
Wow.
Because a principle that my partner articulated very well, and I use to this day, is mindset trumps technique 100% of the time, right? Who you are being aka mindset, is more important than the specific skill, because you can utilize the skill in a way that's ineffective, right? So, and what I noticed to be true is a lot of people have a lot of head trash that hold them back, and it's how they think about things affects how they do things. So if, helping people think about things differently or in a more effective way, has been effective. And somewhere longer one was, I got a client, Larry. He's kind of on maintenance mode right now, but in February of 2018, he came to me, and he is a fractional CFO. He was used to making $15,000 a month in corporate America, and he was only making 7 or 8, I think, at the time. And he was only closing 10% of the proposals he was making on a monthly basis. We worked on sales strategy, his ideal client, sales process, how he moved people through that, how he converted people, specifically making offers. And by October of 2018, he approached me and said, "Hey, Bryan, I want you to look at these numbers. This is amazing," because he's a numbers guy, right? He told me that he was closing 70 to 80% of the proposals he was making on a monthly basis. And he had crossed the $25,000 a month mark. And then went on in the middle of COVID, June of 2020, he was making $72,000 a month. Yeah. And what a lot of people hear when I say that is, with closing 78% of the proposals he was making on a monthly basis, this is the go narrow to go wide concept. He was talking to less people, because what was happening is when he brought somebody into a sales process, he knew how to listen for and interact with an ideal client. And he was kicking more people out of his sales process than he was taking through, because he knew, this one, he could identify, this is a higher probability. Somebody who's motivated, has the problems I solve, who wants to solve them. So when the principle was, when he took them through the sales process and he was making them an offer, there was a 90% chance, he felt that there was a 90% chance that they would accept, right? It didn't work out the 90%, it worked out the 70 to 80, but to this day, Larry says, if I can do it, anybody can do it, because he's your stereotypical CFO, introvert, quirky, you would look at him and you would think, no way he's a salesperson. And he produces so much business that he has to find other CFOs to work for him along the way, because he can't manage it. Can't handle it all.
Can't handle it all. That's awesome. So go narrow to go big. Is that what you said? Go narrow to go wide.
It's a Lean Six Sigma theory of constraints principle. Is when I can create a process that people can go through in an efficient manner, I'll close more. So for instance, when you go narrow, get very, very clear about your ideal client profile, kind of like I described, right? Like, I'm not working with salespeople. I'm working with people. I'm not working with any business owner. It's specifically consultants and fractional people who believe these certain things, right? Like, I have a clear demographic and psychographic profile. And to give you a much more clear example, like, I work with a lot of EOS implementers, and in that world, all of them think that I only work with EOS implementers. I never say that. I just work with a lot. And one of them said to me in September, like, "Hey, this is great. Hey, I'm curious. Would you work with a buddy of mine who's not an EOS implementer? He actually is. He's a consultant. I think you could help him. I'm just not sure if you work with people other than that." I go, "Yeah, no, I do." Right? Like, in your world, you all think I just work with you, but I'm just really clear in regards to EOS implementers, what your problems are, and what you run into and what you want, where I just kind of talk about that. So when you niche down, said another way, you'll get really good at that niche, but then things will come at ease outside of that niche, right? There's a lot of people in this world that started businesses that focused on one specific vertical, got more resources, got more money, access to more people, and they started branching out because it was easier to do that, right? If you're trying to go capture everybody and anybody, that's
Right.
actually the most inefficient way to get progress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, look, I haven't lived that experience, so I completely understand exactly what you're saying on both sides. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, and I hope that people who are listening today understand that it does make sense, and they should actually look at that concept. I love it. Hey, we're getting close to the end of our time together. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to
No,
leave our
I would
audience with?
say, I would reiterate, like, some of the best sales behaviors are not sales behaviors, right? If you're struggling in sales, ask yourself, am I doing, the things that I interpret a used car salesman would do? And if so, stop. And if you
Yeah.
are a consultant, a fractional person, or a business owner that has to sell to make your business grow, and you don't feel you're a salesperson, that is actually an advantage. It is not a disadvantage. Um, uh, People in this world want to buy; they don't want to be sold. And when you take the approach of
Right.
how I would articulate it, serving versus selling, you will sell more. You will enroll more clients. People will be falling over to work with you. You just got to get that impression out into the marketplace.
Words to live by. I love it. That's wonderful. Hey, if our audience would like to get in contact with you to learn more about Bryan, learn more about your
Yeah,
business,
a
how
couple
would they go
different
about
ways.
doing that?
I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so my LinkedIn URL and all my socials are McDonald Bryan, and that's Bryan with a Y. Everything's backwards because there's a guy out there that has Bryan McDonald, so I just switched them. You can reach me at onPurposeGrowth.com, and I also have a speaking and personal website. Go figure, it's McDonaldBryan.com.
Outstanding. Well, Bryan or McDonald Bryan, thank you so much for being on the show. Hey, you're a wonderful guest and loved having you here. Folks, that's all we have for today. So glad you could be with us. Business Breakthroughs is sponsored by Titan Media Works. Check us out at TitanMediaWorks.com. That's works spelled WORX. And also check out all of our other great hosts on the Small Business Delivered Network at smallbusinessdelivered.com. Until next time, have a great day. I look forward to seeing you again.